We all know that the sugar that we add to our milk, tea or coffee is produced from sugarcane. In other words, sugarcane is a raw material that is converted to a finished product, sugar, which has a higher utility value. This process by which value is added or created is termed as production. For example, the value of the sugarcane crop is enhanced once sugar is produced from it. Production depends on 4 important factors or requirements: land, labor, physical capital, and human capital. Meet Jagan, a young sugarcane farmer from Palampur village. He also wants to become a businessman, for which he plans to set up a sugarcane factory. Let us see how the different factors of production come into play both in the agricultural and industrial activities that Jagan undertakes. Starting with agriculture, the primary thing needed for farming is land for the cultivation of the crop. Land is a gift of nature but is fixed. That is, we can neither increase nor decrease it. However, land by itself can produce nothing. Therefore, Jagan will have to put in some labor if he wants something in return from this piece of land that he owns. Since he cannot do all the work by himself, he employs people to work on his farm. These people are termed as labor. Labor here refers to the physical labor. Physical labor would be required for plowing, sowing, cutting, harvesting, etc. In return for the work done, the labor is paid wages. Now that Jagan has the land and labor, he needs another important component. He needs capital, or the money that will help him procure the inputs for his agricultural activities and pay for the labor. This physical capital can be further classified into 2 kinds: fixed capital and working capital. Fixed capital refers to tools and equipment that can be repeatedly used over many years. For example, the tractor used for plowing and tools for digging. Working capital refers to the money in hand and raw materials like seeds, fertilizers, pesticides, which are necessary for the agricultural process. Unlike the fixed capital, working capital cannot be reused as it gets used up in the production process. Jagan skillfully needs to manage his agricultural activities so that he can get good returns at the end of the harvesting season. To fulfill his ambition of becoming a businessman, Jagan decides to set up a factory close to the field so that he can earn higher returns on his investment. This spirit of an individual that allows them to put together their knowledge and expertise to add value to an existing good is termed as human capital. Human capital is also termed as entrepreneurship. Jagan has set up a factory. Here again, the 4 factors of production come into play. He needs land and capital to set up the factory. The factory and the machinery within it become his fixed capital, while the money used for the day-to-day expenditure, raw material and other inputs are termed as his working capital. He needs human effort to run the machines and transport the finished product to the market. Thus, he needs labor. At the end of the production process, he earns a higher return on the sugar that he sells. The profit that he earns is the incentive for him as the human capital. Thus, we can conclude that whether in agriculture or in an industry, the 4 factors play an important role to add value to the good. Let's take a quick quiz to recall the different factors of production. Which factor of production is missing in this production process in a factory? Look at the picture. and identify which combination of factors of production does the visual represent. A tractor reduces human effort. Which factor of production does it represent? A farmer who was earlier producing food crops transforms his farmland to an orchard to earn better returns. Which factor of production does his decision represent? Think about this and discuss. Zoya, a student of agricultural science, has just returned to her native village, Palampur. Farming is the main production activity in the village, but Zoya is surprised to find that the productivity per hectare is low in her village. She decides to meet the most experienced farmer of her village, whom all call Chacha, to discuss her concern.
Chacha, I am surprised that our village suffers from such low yields. Why don't we use modern farming techniques to help increase the yield on our farms?
What do you mean by modern farming techniques? We have been practicing agriculture over generations and follow the best possible agricultural practices.
Times have changed. Let me take you on a step-by-step guide. The first thing necessary for a good crop is that the land must be ploughed and prepared well. For this, instead of using the traditional plough, ask the farmers to pull in money and buy a tractor. This machine will help plough the land in half the time taken by the traditional method. The next thing we require is good quality seeds. The government provides these seeds at the start of the sowing season. These seeds are known as the high-yielding variety seeds as they give a much higher return per plant. However, these seeds need a good amount of water. To meet this requirement, we need a good source of water. We cannot depend on monsoons alone. We need to have alternate means to supply water to the crops. For this, we will need to dig tube wells and install pumps that will help to draw groundwater and ensure that water for cultivation is available all year round. Besides this, dams and canals can also be constructed, and the water collected can be used to supply water to more than one village at a time.
This is very interesting. But what is the solution for the times when pests attack the crops in the fields?
Chacha, science has taken care of this problem. Scientists have come up with pesticides, which when sprayed on the field, help to keep the pests away from the crop. Besides this, the use of chemical fertilizers over the traditional manure also helps to increase the productivity of the farm. Once the crop is ready, farmers also have the option of using a harvester to harvest their crop. But of course, this machine can be used only on very large-size farms. Another machine they could use is a thresher. A thresher is a modern machine used to separate wheat grain from stalks and husks. If the farmers of the village adopt these modern farming practices, I am sure we will have a bumper crop. I have one more question. I understand that the people of this village grow only wheat. What do they grow in the rest of the year?
The land lies barren as we do not have sufficient rain to grow crops all year round.
I have just given you the solution for that. Once the people adopt modern farming techniques, they can grow many crops in the course of the year. This is known as multiple cropping. For example, kharif crop like rice can be grown in the rainy season. In the dry summer months, zaid cropping can be done by growing vegetables like gourd and fruits like watermelon. In the winter season, rabi crop like wheat can continue to be grown.
That's good education for us, Zoya. Thank you for enlightening us with techniques of modern farming and advantages of multiple cropping. We must share this knowledge with our fellow farmers at the next Gram Sabha meeting.
There is no doubt that modern farming techniques have helped to increase the yield. However, like everything else, these modern techniques come with a set of challenges. The biggest challenge comes in the form of land overuse, especially when farmers practice multiple cropping. In order to improve productivity, the farmers use chemical fertilizers and pesticides, but these tend to deplete the fertility of the soil. Chemical fertilizers and pesticides also alter the biology of natural water resources like lakes and rivers. The excessive nitrates in chemical fertilizers and pesticides pollute the river. Groundwater is another natural resource that is being overused. The water table gets depleted due to the overpumping of water by our tube wells. Though the government has implemented rural electrification, yet most rural areas experience hours of load shedding. In fact, sometimes the supply is at such awkward hours that farmers find it difficult to irrigate their fields at such times. Additionally, it is difficult to employ many of the modern machines, such as harvesters, since land fragmentation is widespread in India. Hence, such machines cannot be used by small farmers, and the advantage of this is enjoyed only by the richer farmers. The disadvantage of smaller farms is that there is a wastage of space along the borders of each farmland. Think about this and discuss.
Capital plays a key factor in the production process, whether in the agricultural or the industrial sector. In present times, with the focus shifting from production for self-consumption to production for sale in the market, the role of capital has become particularly significant. Tube wells for irrigation, fertilizers, HYV seeds, and modern farm machinery like tractors all guarantee a better yield. But where does a farmer get all these from? For the big farmers, the main source of capital is the surplus production. That is the total yield minus the portion to be used for self-consumption. By selling the surplus in the market, the big farmers earn money, which can be reused in the production process for the next agricultural cycle. Or he can use that money to lend to poor and smaller farmers who are in need of a loan. However, the plight of small farmers is quite different. The money required for buying the modern means of farming is quite high. He needs to borrow money to buy these things. For this, he is dependent on the rich farmers or moneylenders who charge a very high rate of interest. This often leads the small farmers into debt traps. That is because if the borrower is unable to repay the loan, they have to forfeit their land and lose whatever small holding they once possessed. Additionally, at times, they can be made to work as labor on the farm of the rich landowner if he is unable to pay back the loan amount, thus leading to him becoming a bonded laborer. One wonders if there is no way that the small farmers can arrange for capital without getting into debt traps like these. The answer to this is yes. The government has made special provisions to help and support small farmers. Nationalized banks in India offer special schemes whereby small farmers are given loans at very low rates of interest. Other than that, there are cooperative societies in rural areas whereby small farmers can pool in their resources to avail certain financial services. Usually, these are specialized units. For example, a needy farmer requiring finances can take a loan from the farmers' cooperative to purchase agricultural implements and units. Times have changed. So have the ways of securing capital for cultivation. However, poverty and exploitation in rural India continues. Think about this and discuss. Did you know that Erode is nicknamed Manjal Manakram or Turmeric City? Erode is a major producer and trading center of turmeric in Tamil Nadu. Besides turmeric, other major crops grown here are rice, sugarcane, sesame, groundnut and cotton. Overall agriculture is very well developed in this district. Yet, 40% of the population in Erode is employed in the non-agricultural sector. The non-agricultural sectors in which people are employed are the handloom industry, powerloom textile industry, carpet weaving, oil pressing and brass vessel manufacturing, to name a few. Of these, the handloom industry employs the largest number of people. That is why Erode is also called the Loom City. This migration of people from agricultural activities to non-agricultural small-scale industries has happened only in recent years. This migration has brought prosperity to the people of the region. To understand the benefit of a small-scale unit, let us go through the life story of Shankar. When Shankar was just 17, he lost his father, so he had to discontinue his education. Soon, he took over the responsibility of cultivating cotton on their land. However, very soon, he was forced to sell off the land as the debt that his father had taken was mounting. After clearing the debt, Shankar had some money left with him. He decided to keep this money in a bank for future use. But with the land gone, he would now have to think of some alternate way of earning to meet the day-to-day needs of his family. Since there were a number of handloom units in his village, he gained employment in one such unit and worked there for 2 years. With the experience gained, he decided to set up his own handloom weaving unit in a part of his house. For initial capital, he withdrew the money he had kept aside after he had sold his land. The raw material needed was also easily available from his other farmer friends who grew cotton. Initially, he was assisted by his mother and sister. Together, they worked hard day and night. As years rolled by, Shankar understood the details of the business. He secured a bank loan and purchased 3 more handloom weaving machines that he set up in a shed next to his house. Today, Shankar has 10 such weaving machines running. He employs 20 other people who, like him a few years ago, have no alternate employment. In other words, he is not only supporting his family, but is also supporting 10 other families. Like Shankar, many other enterprising people living in Erode have set up their own small-scale industry. Weavers like Shankar now sell their merchandise at the local bi-weekly market held in the cloth market at Erode. Since the number of weavers is large, the cloth market of Erode has risen to become one of the largest cloth markets in the world. From this example, let us understand the benefits of a small-scale unit. It can be set up at a fairly low initial cost. It is also easy to run the small-scale industry in rural areas, as the raw material needed is usually available in the village and need not be transported from outside. Since it provides a steady employment, it prevents migration to urban areas. Fewer villagers now think of migrating to the cities for employment. They have understood that they can now stay with their family and still lead a life of dignity. Moreover, small-scale industries significantly boost the district's economy as an additional source of revenue is available. Think about this and discuss.
Here is the definition of labor given by Alfred Marshall. Labor is a productive factor of production. It is considered important not only because it is productive, but also because it activates other factors of production and makes them useful for production purposes. Let's have a look at a few features of labor. Labor cannot be separated from a laborer, and it cannot be accumulated for further use. Labor supply varies with time, and also it can vary in terms of efficiency. Labor is less mobile, since a human can travel only up to a distance. Labor is classified on the basis of many factors, such as nature of the work done, example, physical and mental labor. Based on skill, skilled, semi-skilled and unskilled labor. Training, professional and trained labor. Income earned, productive and non-productive labor. Under this concept, the process of production is made into steps and assigned to different people who often specialize in one particular area of work. The advantages of division of labor are efficiency of labor. Division increases the efficiency of the labor. Quality of production. It leads to improvement in the quality of goods and services. Profit. It increases profit. The disadvantages are monotony of work. The routine work can be tiring. Lack of responsibility. Responsibility of faults cannot be put onto a particular person. Increased dependence on a single person. All responsibility of a particular stage of a task falls on a single person. Labor includes all manual and mental efforts made in order to Excellent. Identify one of the disadvantages of division of labor among the options. Excellent. We learned these few things in this chapter.
India is primarily an agricultural country. A large segment of India's rural population works in farms. These people are commonly known as agricultural laborers. Agricultural laborers are workers who work in other people's farms for wages. It also includes farmers with small land holdings. Indian agricultural laborers face a lot of problems in earning their livelihood. Let's understand their troubles through the case of one such laborer, Sarju. Sarju is a bonded laborer. Bonded laborer refers to a worker who borrows money from a rich farmer or a landlord and in return works for them for a stipulated time period. As per the arrangement, Sarju provides free service to the landlord. Under the contract, the landlord forces him to perform chores other than farm labor. He also refuses to specify the exact duration of Sarju's bond. It's also possible that this bond might pass on to Sarju's family and his future generations. Agricultural laborers who are not bonded laborers like Sarju also face a lot of problems in their work. Most of them receive very low wages, which doesn't even fulfill their basic requirements. Besides, natural factors such as unpredictability of monsoons and other adverse weather conditions affect their agricultural production. Various socio-economic and political factors such as old land holding systems, old cultivation methods, and illiteracy also impact the laborers' livelihood. Most of these laborers are employed seasonally during the cropping months, but they are unable to find suitable employment for the remaining part of the year. Illiteracy among laborers makes it easier for moneylenders to exploit them. They often charge unreasonably high interest rates on loans from the laborers. Their lack of education prevents them from developing any specialized technical skills in a particular field. So now, can you think of any solutions to relieve Sarju and his fellow agricultural laborers from their troubles? The Indian government has introduced several measures post-independence to help agricultural workers such as Sarju. One such measure is the abolishment of the bonded labor system in 1976. Though this practice is still active in remote areas, it's a punishable offense by law. To provide laborers sufficient wages, government introduced the Minimum Wages Act in all states and fixed a minimum wage amount. In Karnataka, this wage amount is around 82 rupees per day. Government also supports the growth of cottage and small-scale industries, cattle rearing and poultry industries in villages as they increase employment opportunities for agricultural laborers. Decentralization of industries has helped agricultural laborers in finding employment in sectors other than agriculture. The government also introduced the 20-point program in 1975 to uplift rural living conditions. This program concentrated on providing free residential sites to landless laborers and other backward sections. It also abolished recovery of debts from landless laborers. It focused on implementing ceilings on land holdings and distributed surplus land among poor landless laborers. Industries were started in rural areas to provide work to agricultural laborers during the off-season. Nationalized banks were authorized to provide low-interest rate loans for laborers. Several national and state-level employment schemes, such as the National Rural Employment Guarantee Act (NREGA) and Raitra Mitra, were introduced for improving rural employment opportunities. Think about this and discuss.